coronavirus?
I don't know, but I mean, if you, again, even just looking at the deaths in every age group, even, people that are in my age group, 3 to 49, there's 20,000 deaths that have been linked to the confirmed COVID-19 cases.
Right.
Whereas, it varies, it's 200. And even if you triple that.
For people with comorbidities, obviously, it's a real issue.
Yeah, I don't know if that's always the case, but yes, definitely with people with comorbidities.
Because according to this, what we pulled up, it's 5% that are dying just of the COVID. 95% have an average of 4 comorbidities.
Okay, well, if that's true for all ages, then, yes, people with comorbidities are more likely to die. But also, younger people, like I said, they're more likely to get, these long-haul symptoms where I've known so many people, that they've gotten, like, their loss of smell or taste has been, like, several months. And there's now studies showing that, there was a huge study out of the Biobank, UK Biobank data, where right before the pandemic started, MRIs were done, brain scans on, like, almost 1,000 people. It was, like, over 800. And then the pandemic hit. People got COVID, some people didn't, whatever. So they brought the same cohort of people back in for a brain scan. And, basically they corrected for people, so they had people that, they compared people that were the same age, same gender, same sex. And then they also timed between scans, and they found that both mild and severe COVID-19 cases caused a atrophy in the gray matter region of the brain. It was worse in people that had it more severe,
right?
Understandable, but people that had mild cases that didn't go to the hospital had it.
How many people did they study with this?
It was over 800. Yeah, I mean, it's you need more data to confirm, but I mean,
were these people, did they stratify by age?
Age, gender,
health?
Ethnicity, health. I don't know.
Did they have comorbidities? Did they factor that in?
They had people that age the same age, as people didn't get COVID, they didn't have it. I mean, this is several months. This is just months after. I don't know about the health.
Did they monitor their nutrition or find out what kind of supplements they were on?
I don't know. I don't know if any of that data was in it.
Do you think that data would be a factor at all?
I don't know, because I know people that supplement, that exercise, that have had, were diagnosed with, they had a mild case and they were diagnosed with POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where their heart was racing, like tachycardia was racing, just uncontrollably. They were dizzy, had no energy. I mean, this was months, and they finally got diagnosed with, like, a lot of people coming out with this, but,
Do you know anybody that had COVID and got through it with almost no symptoms at all and was very mild?
Well, yeah, no symptoms at all, but the people that I do know, most of them had some kind of weird taste issue, or smell thing for, weeks and weeks, but yeah.
Do you know anybody that didn't have that?
I don't. Most of the people I know that had it lost their smell. I know people are out there that don't have any symptoms at all,
I think it's something like 40% were completely asymptomatic.
Well, there was a study in Israel, kind of going back to the stroke thing, that found, this was published in April, maybe April 2020 or something, or maybe July, it was still 2020. They looked at patients that were coming in for stroke, and these were younger than 50, and 30% of them had COVID, didn't know it because they were asymptomatic and they were younger people, so it's like, you think, well, if they had four comorbidities and they had COVID, they know it, right? So they were coming in for stroke, and they had no idea they had COVID until they were tested, and they found out
stroke.
Exactly. So getting back to so there's reasons that I personally think that people that are younger and healthy should get vaccinated. And for one is because for most people, the vaccines are safe. And I mean, we just have data to show that, we have hundreds of millions of people that have had the vaccines we're getting in the United States that have been vaccinated worldwide. The second, it's just hundreds of millions of people. But also the fact that, some of this stuff where you're talking about spike protein, and worrying about spike protein, this is important because the spike protein from the SARS-CoV-2 virus is a different spike protein than what's in the vaccine. itself is locked in a conformation. It's called prefusion, which is kind of like closed together. And typically what happens when viruses like interact with our cell membrane, they elongate. It's called postfusion viral complex, and changes structure. And so the actual, both the mRNA vaccines and Johnson & Johnson locked the spike protein in the prefusion conformation. They inserted 2 proline amino acids and kept it locked. It's a different protein. It's a different structure. It can't open up. We don't know, there's no evidence that these studies that have, the one you're talking about, the Salk Institute, the other ones that they've injected spike protein from the SARS-CoV virus into tracheas of hamsters and also mice. There's been some in vitro studies showing the spike protein is harmful in those studies, and it's binding to the ACE2 receptor, and once it binds, it can undergo fusion and endocytosis, but we don't know if the spike protein from these mRNA vaccines are doing that. If you're going to make that claim, it's a different spike protein. You can't make that claim with no evidence.
So what do you think is happening to the people that are getting myocarditis or strokes or thrombosis or blood clots?
Well,
from the vaccine?
so here's the thing. I think the other part of that is that people are concerned that the mRNA vaccines don't stay in the deltoid tissue.
Right.
And they're somehow getting into circulation and cause. Havoc, Here's the thing, so these mRNA vaccines, they're basically encased in this lipid nanoparticle, and there's some other things in there with it, but generally speaking, when they're injected into the muscle tissue, the lipid nanoparticle has a half-life of a few hours, long enough to protect the mRNA from degrading. The mRNA again, the half-life is, anywhere between 72 hours or maybe like a little longer. And the spike protein itself that's made in your cells speaks after 24 hours, and then it goes away after 48. The concern from people that the spike protein from the mRNA vaccines, or even just the whole mRNA vaccine itself, the whole lipid nanoparticle with the mRNAs, like going to other tissues, comes from studies that were done from Pfizer. And it was kind of leaked out, and these studies were called biodistribution studies. And they did rats and they did mice. In the rats, they injected 50 micrograms of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. So humans, we get 30 micrograms per injection. They gave the rat 50. So, how big is a rat? They're getting almost twice as much as a big human's getting. If you look at the rat equivalent dose, 50 micrograms is 10 times the rat equivalent dose. They were doing that intentionally for safety and to see what happens when you give 10 times, like high dose. And what was found is that you could see they radio labeled the lipid nanoparticle, and you could see some radio label parts in other organs. Like, you'd see it in the spleen, the liver, in the bone marrow, a little bit of other organs. But again, this is 10 times the dose, and this was a radio-labeled lipid nanoparticle. And typically, when you inject something into like your muscle,